I know a lot of you like to put a few bets and a few tips and like to get a few tips on where you should put your money. And with so many interesting things there, I was like, this Friday, I've got to get one of the best in the business. I've got to get one of the leading betting experts, one of the top tipsters and outstanding sports journalists. So I'm delighted to introduce to today's show Paul Jacobs, the sports broadcaster. We're about to just get Paul back on the show. Hi, Paul. How are you doing today?
Yeah, good morning. I've just had my honey and garlic first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, so nobody better come into the kitchen where I'm broadcasting today, otherwise they're going to get the heat of that. But it's good for you all the same, and it sets you up for a nice day. And the great thing about this weekend, Rich, is there's superb choice for sports betting. And what you have to do is A, be really patient, and B, sort the wheat from the chaff. And there's every chance you'll hopefully make a profit this next 48 hours or so.
So come on then, the Premier League, where is the wheat then?
Well, you know what? You've said, big matches. You've mentioned Chelsea against Spurs, and, Burnley's fascinating as well this weekend. But, you need to see beyond those sort of highlight packages. And I'm a great person in doing a lot of sort of in-depth knowledge behind the scenes and trying to find those little nuggets of gold. And you know what? There are plenty of them. Let's start off with Leicester against Borough. Leicester this season, 1 point from 18 away from home, 11 from 18 on their home patch. Back, of course, off that brilliant victory over Bruges, a superb start to the season of the Champions League. They'll be full of confidence as well. And I could not believe it. If you priced this match up last season, midway through the season on last season's form, of course, Borough weren't in the Premier League, but if you imagine what it would be, you would suggest Leicester maybe 1-3, 2-7, and Borough maybe 7 or 8-1. Can you believe it? Get ready, hold back, hold your breath. Leicester nearly even money, 10-11. It's an absolute stip of a price. But if you don't want to go at 10-11, I advise you do. How about this? Leicester, money back if it's a draw, is 1-3. Now, you might say, 1-3 is a wee bit short. But think about this. How much interest do you get when you put your money in the bank over a year? You're lucky if you get, 1.5%?
If that.
33% Leicester money, no money back, no draw. That could be the option if you want to put it in a double with something else. But even on its own, for me, you're buying money.
Okay, yeah, because Leicester have got an incredibly good record at home right now. I think they're unbeaten in maybe 20 games, something like that.
Correct.
They're not far off Chelsea's record, I believe.
But the great thing about them as well, Rich, they're coming into this fixture with a huge amount of confidence. Arguably, Middlesbrough's best chance of scoring a goal is through Negredo, but he can't find the back of the net at the moment. He's been absolutely appalling this season, and they're bound to set up with 5 across the midfield as well. And maybe some people would say, it's not the way Leicester like to play. They like to play on the counter-attack. But even if they take the game to Middlesbrough, they should be too good. But as I say, that sort of almost safety net of a bet, draw no bet, it would be the way to go. But 10-11 for them to win outright in 90 minutes is still exceptional value.
Where else? Are there any other games we should be looking at in the Premier League this weekend, Paul, other than Leicester?
Love Sunday's game. I'll be there. I'm going to go to Watford-Stoke. Corresponding fixture last year, Stoke won there. And they bossed the game when they won by 2-1. And Watford is quite interesting. The situation at the moment with the manager who basically is very, very forthright, doesn't pull any punches. And up front, Deeney without Ighalo, and it could happen again this weekend. He was dropped last week. For me, is like bread without butter. Those two, when they are hanging fire together and in form, are potent, especially away from home, but maybe not so much at home. And they were bossed in the final 20 minutes last week by Leicester, happily, when Leicester all of a sudden woke up and realised we better play if we're going to get anything from Vicarage Road. Mark Hughes has all of a sudden woken up to thinking, you know what, I need to be more positive away from home. I don't want to play 5 across the midfield as I would do against Man City away, as I would do against Liverpool away, Chelsea away, Spurs away. And when he goes to teams like Watford, he knows he's got a chance of grabbing the 3 points. And I think you're going to see the big three playing on Sunday, Bojan, Arnautovic and Shaqiri as well. And if those three are on form, remember some of the away performances that trio put together last season. I think most notably at Goodison Park when they made Everton look very, very ordinary. I think they've got an exceptional chance of winning it. And for me, 5-2 is way too big for Stoke. Yes, this season they haven't impressed. They've had a little bit of a purple patch in the last 3 or 4 weeks. And if they carry that forward, and Watford are a very interesting team. I think Pereira has been very good for them in the last 2 or 3 weeks. He's been a sensational buy. He's a class player, but they don't have that sort of rod of steel going through the centre of midfield. And if Stoke play to their exceptional limits, I think they can turn them over. 5-2 is a big price, and if you put Leicester in a double at even money or thereabouts, just short, and Stoke at 5-2, you're going to find another big nugget of gold on the Premier League this weekend. For me, the best bet is Stoke to win at 5-2.
Well, I'm glad you told me that, Paul, because before the show I was saying to my producer James, I've got no interest in watching Watford Stoke. I now have. Thanks for that. You've made that game interesting for me. All right, so we'll look at both of those matches in the English Premier League. So, Paul, let's move away from football for a moment. We're going to have a little chat about rugby. Let's have a quick look at what's going on in the Autumn Internationals this weekend.
Yeah, and it's fascinating, isn't it? Because we're now getting into the time where we've had basically you could say 2.5 rounds of the Autumn Internationals, and injuries are beginning to play a part, and freshness as well, because of course the first class season has been going now for just over 6 weeks as well. And it comes to a point where the strength and depth of each squad matters an awful lot. And I wanted to hone in, Richard, if I could, on the Ireland-Australia game, because everybody remembers that sensational victory by Ireland in Chicago over the New Zealand All Blacks. Who saw that coming? I certainly didn't. I played over the points that day and I did win, but I didn't see an Ireland victory. And although they lost to New Zealand in the reverse fixture at Dublin, they weren't really sort of put in their place. In fact, they had chances to win it again. But both of those games were hugely physical encounters. And they're coming up against an Australian side who just about nicked it from France in Paris last week. But, and here's the key fact, they played, well, basically a second 15, and they've beaten France on their home turf. Now, France aren't the great powers that used to be 15, 20 years ago when they were winning Grand Slams and Triple Crowns all over the place. But they've got a new breed of young player, and I think we'll find in the Six Nations this winter that France will up their game from last year. But Australia, all of a sudden, bang, unfortunately for Ireland, but fortunately for us from a betting point of view, are going to bring back their first 15. And they've got Israel Folau coming back. Brilliant player, one of the most talented ball carriers in the world in the back division, and the outstanding Michael Hooper, and 7 other top-notch first-teamers that would have played in France automatically would have got into the side. Now, when I had a look at the prices, Richard, I have to tell you, I nearly fainted. I couldn't believe this. Australia, it's 10-11 each of 2 to win the game. But if you believe, as I do, that fatigue is going to come into play here from Ireland. Australia are fresh. They've got their best players back in again. You can actually back Australia in the handicap, and I think they can win by giving away 3 points or 4 points or even 5 points, which is round about 11-4 or 3-1. This is not going to be close. Ireland are going to be hit by the force. And the other thing about Ireland is this, and you'll see this when you see the teams being announced later today, is that Ireland's midfield has been totally decimated. The 4 players they have in midfield are all injured. They've got 2 debutants as well, and they're going to find Australia, too experienced, too fresh, and too classy. And if you can get odds against, if you want to go up to -5 or -6, that means Australia giving Ireland 5 or 6 points. You can get the best part of 7-2 at 4-1. And I think that is an absolute gimme, Richard.
With England 11 out of 11, is that just a bet just to say well away from?
I just don't think I know how to take England. There's a lot of players, the 4 players coming in for the England side this weekend, but I'm not so sure whether they're going to be as fresh as well as they were for the first Autumn International. I think also when they play the lesser sides like Fiji, like Argentina, etc., they almost play on cruise control. I think that's very, very dangerous. And Argentina on the handicap might be interesting. The other interesting match, of course, is Wales versus South Africa. Wales, all of a sudden, in the last year, have been absolutely dire. I mean, for me, they've got one of the best packs in the world, but they're just not performing as a unit as well. Having said that, this is the worst South African side we've probably seen, maybe in 7, 8, 9, 10 years as well. So it's an opportunity for Wales to win. But the problem you're going to see today is that Wales are going to be very, very nervous because they're expected to win by their fans, by the management. But the other thing is they're expected to win playing with a bit of flair. At the moment, they're just not showing that. So it's very, very dangerous staying on the side of Wales, despite the fact that South Africa they've looked hugely ordinary in the last few weeks.
It could be a crucial game for either team to really, push on for their improve where they've been, because they've both been pretty poor the last few weeks. So we like to get comments on Facebook every single morning, Paul. And we've got one here from Sam Hall, a person we both know well, and he says, "Two legends of broadcasting together, a great way to start the day." Exactly.
Love it.
Thank you, Sam. Keep your messages coming on the Facebook page. Anything you want to know about anything to do with sports. We've got Paul Jacobs here this morning. So, Paul, we've got to get you talking about horse racing, because you are the record-breaking racing post-naps champion 5 times in the last 16 years. Nobody does it better when it comes to horse racing than you. So we've got a huge race this weekend, Hennessy Gold Cup. Where do you think this is going to go? Where's the good money that our people should be thinking about putting on?
Well, this is salivating to me. The Hennessy Gold Cup, for those of you who are not really interested in your horse racing, this is one of the peaks of the season. It's a handicap, which means that horses' weights are based on their talent. So the most talented horses carry the top weight, the least talented the bottom weight, and those in between at various different levels. And the theory is that the handicapper who hands out this weight does it so they all finish in a dead heat. Well, after the end of 3 1/4 miles in the mud, obviously that's not going to happen. But it sort of levels it out with the most talented horses having to carry those welterweights through the mud at Newbury, which is a fantastic race course. And this is a race that basically yields horses that run in the big championship races at the very famous Cheltenham Festival in March. And a number of Grand National winners, placed horses, and indeed Gold Cup winners and Gold Cup placed horses have come out of the Hennessy Gold Cup. So whatever happens on Saturday at 3:10, this form in this race is one to follow throughout the remainder of the season. The top weight is going to be a horse called Smad Place, who won it last year, but he's a lot higher in the weights. If he wins this weekend, I'll be thoroughly shocked, and I might even streak down my home street singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, because I think he's got an impossible task of winning this Saturday. Now, the horse I really like, and there are 2 of them, and betting, not only on horse racing, but all sports, Rich, you'll recognise this, and many of you out there will understand this as well. Betting is not so much about finding the winner, it's about mathematics. Where in a field this big, and there are 17 going to go to post, you can actually have 2 bets in a race. That's exactly what I've done. I backed last year's beaten favourite, Saphir de Reux, who's trained by the multiple champion trainer, Paul Nicholls. I backed him a couple of weeks ago at 16-1. He's now down to 9-1, but he's still viable as an each-way bet. He was favourite last year, but he had too much weight. And for me, he ran way below form. All of a sudden, this summer, he's been showing Paul Nicholls that he's coming back to his best. He's had that vital 1 run under his belt where he ran really well at Ascot under top weight. That'll put him spot onto this. And yes, he's running against younger, more progressive chasers who have yet to see the best of, but I think he's very well handicapped on his best form. And the other one I really like at a huge price. Now, Richard, you like big prices. I mean, this is going to be massive if you're betting on the exchanges as opposed to fixed odds. There's 2 ways you can bet. This horse is going to be around about 55-1. Wow. He's called Coulog. This could basically make your winter. This could absolutely get your Christmas expenses in if you want to as well. He's won at Cheltenham first time out. The big problem with him, he doesn't like soft ground. And I'm looking out now outside my house now. It's beautiful blue skies. It's going to be dry between now and 3:10, and even if he hits the frame at 50-1, you're getting yourself an 11-1 winner, Coulog. And the dangers to them, if you want to go outside those 2, and I wouldn't blame you, the favourite Native River's got half a chance. Tom Portu also has a major chance. These are 2 very young horses we've yet to see the best of. But I like the 2 I've given you. Saphir de Reux, trained by Paul Nicholls, and Coulog is the dark horse in the field. My word, I tell you what, if he comes to the second last and he's anywhere near the leaders, I'm going to be shouting my head off, and you won't even be able to hear me on Saturday night, Sunday morning, which is probably quite a good thing, I would think.
I prefer the image of you shouting your head off than you running down the street naked. That sounds much better for me.
Actually, that does worry me as well.
And,
yes.
You've said it now. It's on public record, live on Sportuccino, what will happen. And I like the idea of Coulog, anything which can help me buy that expensive handbag my girlfriend wants for Christmas, all the better. Paul, it's been great to get your thoughts this morning. Just before you go,
No
why don't you
problem.
tell our viewers how they can continue to get your top tips and follow your journey and what you're up to on social media, please?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. Actually, best way is Twitter, where I post all my thoughts on there at P Jacobs Tipster, and also running a site at the moment called acca.com, which is basically all the big accas I put up throughout the week as well. And if you're looking for something away from the big race of the day, and a lot of people like to go behind the screens, the other place to go is Newcastle on Saturday, 3:30, a race called the Rehearsal Chase. There's a horse called Definitely Red. Now, I'm a blue, so for me to back this horse is a little bit iffy, but Definitely Red in the 3:30 at Newcastle, if you want a bit of a naughty one on the side, is the one to be on, Richard.
Well, Stephen Gerrard's got lots of time on his hands now, so that might be one for him. Definitely Red. Paul, it's been great to get your thoughts. Thank you for being on this morning's Sportuccino.
My pleasure.